Hey, stuffers. If you think your ancestors had a bad travel agent, just wait till you hear this. Alex here, and welcome back to Stuff with Alex. Imagine archaeologists unearthing a sealed stone box from the depth of the Templo Mayor, the central temple in Tenochtitlan, the ancient capital of the Aztecs. You might expect gold, jewels, or maybe a really fancy ceremonial dagger. What they found was far stranger. Over 160 chocolate-chip starfish, specifically the Nidorellia Armata species, laid down as an offering to Huitzilopochtli, the fierce god of the sun and war approximately 700 years ago. This stunning discovery, found alongside chunks of coral, pufferfish, and the skeleton of a female jaguar holding a spear, happened hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. It raises the central, mind-bending question of Aztec religious practice. Why did an empire built on a lake believe that a collection of marine life, which required an enormous logistical effort to acquire and transport, was the perfect tribute for a god of terrestrial power and celestial light? This bizarre confluence of marine relics and military symbols proves that Aztec religion was not arbitrary, but a system of deeply coded, calculated ritual necessity. The people known historically as the Aztecs preferred the name Mexica, a Nahuatl-speaking civilization that arrived in the Valley of Mexico relatively late in the region's history. They're understood to be the final, most powerful wave of migrants who descended into the Central Plateau. Their foundation story is one of divine instruction. They began their journey from the fabled land of Aztlan, a name interpreted as the place of whiteness or the place of the heron. According to their own accounts, they migrated for about a century before their tribal deity Huitzilopochtli instructed them to settle where they saw an eagle perched on a prickly pear cactus, devouring a serpent, the prophecy that led to the founding of Tenochtitlan in 1325. This act transformed what was a difficult nomadic existence into a holy quest, creating a powerful, divinely ordained mandate for their future conquest. The location of Aztlan remains one of the great geographic debates in Mesoamerican history, often compared to the search for Atlantis. Some scholars posit that Aztlan is purely a creation myth, necessary for the Mexica to establish an origin of prestige, particularly since no definitive site has been found. The prevailing theories place its location anywhere from the southwestern United States to northern Mexico, with specific geographical speculation centering on the island of Mexicaltitan de Uribe in Nayarit. However, the question is becoming less about where Aztlan was and more about what it was. Evidence suggests that a real migration took place from the north, with linguistic analysis confirming that the Nahuatl language was foreign to central Mexico. Further, archaeological research suggests that the exodus was necessitated by environmental factors, specifically severe droughts that forced tribes out of the northern regions. This verifiable historical context highlights a crucial political function of the Aztlan myth. The Mexica arrived in the Valley of Mexico as the new kids on the block, surrounded by established, powerful neighbors. Admitting that their century-long trek was triggered by a disastrous, uncontrollable drought would have made them appear weak and vulnerable upon arrival. Instead, the ruling elite strategically reimagined the origin. They transformed their difficult flight from environmental collapse into a glorious, predetermined pilgrimage under the direct, specific command of Huitzilopochtli. This narrative manipulation was a profound political act, transforming a desperate retreat into an unstoppable divine mission, thereby justifying the political supremacy and military aggression that followed. To grasp the rigor of Aztec religion, one must understand its philosophical bedrock. Aztec philosophers were driven by an intensely pragmatic question: how can we maintain our balance while walking upon the slippery earth? The earth itself was seen as precarious, a volatile stage for human existence. This core principle was rooted in the metaphysical belief that the cosmos and humanity were constituted by and ultimately identical with Teotl, a single, vivifying, eternally self-generating sacred energy. Therefore, knowledge, truth, and morality were defined entirely in terms of sustaining balance, both personally and cosmically. This defining pressure of maintaining equilibrium under threat is the deep-seated cultural motive behind the complex calendrical systems and extreme ritual demands. The Aztec system was less a religion and more a comprehensive program of cosmic risk management, orchestrated by an intricate dual timekeeping system designed to stave off the complete collapse of reality. Aztec life was governed by two distinct calendars. The first was the 365-day solar or agricultural calendar, the Huitzilopochtli, which regulated seasonal rituals and agricultural cycles. The second, and the most vital to the Aztec worldview, was the 260-day sacred calendar, the Tonalpohualli, or day count. The Tonalpohualli was primarily a divinatory tool. It determined which gods ruled which days and rituals, a process critical for maintaining the necessary cosmic equilibrium. The stakes were literally apocalyptic. According to Aztec cosmology, opposing divine forces were in constant competition for power, placing the universe in delicate balance and always on the brink of being disrupted by shifting elemental forces. The purpose of the Tonalpohualli was to administratively allocate time and space among these competing deities, ensuring that each received their due. Without this meticulous time-based tribute system, the internal divine war would escalate, and the world would end. This makes my weekly planning look pretty low stakes. The Aztec pantheon was vast, having absorbed religious elements from many preceding Mesoamerican cultures. Their key deities often represented essential dualities, reflecting the polar monism inherent in the Teotl metaphysics. This included the fundamental opposition between Quetzalcoatl, the embodiment of life, light, and wisdom associated with the West, and Tezcatlipoca, the god of darkness, providence, and the invisible, associated with the North. This dualistic structure was physically embodied in the Templo Mayor, which was designed as a dual pyramid dedicated equally to Tláhuac, the rain and fertility god, and Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun. To keep these two powerful competing forces in check, constant specific offerings were necessary. The priest's elaborate round of rituals was based entirely on the calendar. This mandatory ritual cycle explains the often misinterpreted brutality of Aztec sacrifice. The horrific rituals were not arbitrary acts of malice. They were compulsory, calculated payments required by the Tonalpohualli to maintain cosmological stability. When a month like Tlacaxipehuantli, or flaying of men, or Toxcat, mandated a certain offering, that payment was a cold, administrative necessity to ensure that time and space were correctly allocated, preventing the cosmic war from engulfing the Earth. The gruesome requirements were merely the bureaucratic cost of preventing the apocalypse. The latest archaeological findings at the Templo Mayor, spearheaded by advanced conservation techniques, are providing a staggering level of detail about the symbolic economy and material culture of the late Aztec period. Recent excavations have uncovered a trove of 2,550 remarkably well-preserved wooden artifacts deposited as ritual offerings between 1486 and 1502. This collection, found in offering boxes at the foot of the Templo Mayor, includes miniature masks, scepters, weapons, ear flares, and rings. These finds are associated with both the rain god Tláhuac and the war god Huitzilopochtli, reflecting the temple's dual nature. The survival of so much wood in the waterlogged environment of Tenochtitlan is a miracle of circumstance. The items were waterlogged, which ironically preserved them from desiccation, but also caused chemical weakening and deterioration over the centuries. Modern science is now racing to stabilize them. Conservators are using a complex, multi-stage process involving the submergence of the artifacts in increasing concentrations of a synthetic sugar mixture. This mixture slowly displaces the water in the wood cell structure, a lengthy effort that can take up to a year per artifact. Through analysis using a scanning electron microscope, researchers have identified the specific species of wood, such as pine, mesquite, fir, and cypress, that Mexica artisans harvested from the forests of central Mexico to create these high-value ritual items. The level of high-quality craftsmanship, applied even to objects destined to be buried, speaks to the immense value placed on offerings. Stuffers, hit that like button if you're already spiraling into the mystery of these impossibly preserved treasures. Let's show the algorithm we appreciate the painstaking work of historical conservation. The bizarre offering of marine life provides a window into the dualistic nature of Aztec tribute. Ritual appeasement merged seamlessly with military marketing. The specific cache that contained the 164 starfish, located in a round structure dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, called the Qualchicalco, was an imperial declaration. Archaeologists have focused on the Nidorellia Armata species, noting that the pattern on the starfish strongly resembles the spotted pelt of a jaguar. Since a female jaguar skeleton wielding a spear was included in the same box, this suggests the starfish was not randomly chosen, but was intentionally selected to mimic the terrestrial animal most associated with military prowess and the war god's domain. This massive offering was deposited during the reign of Huitzilopochtli, 1486 to 1502, a period marked by significant conquest, including regions where the starfish and coral originated. The closest source for these marine goods was approximately 186 miles away. Mesoamerican peoples believed the world originated from the sea, thus treating marine organisms as relics. Transporting thousands of marine relics inland to recreate an aquatic environment was an enormous logistical feat, designed not just to appease the gods, but to display the scope and reach of the empire's military might. The offerings consecrated temple enlargements and commemorated conquests, effectively making the starfish a physical trophy, a piece of extreme showboating by the ruler Huitzilopochtli to prove his divine right and unstoppable military campaign. While the architectural achievements of Tenochtitlan continue to astound, a deep analysis of the empire reveals that for all their structural genius, critical gaps remain in our understanding of their administration, gaps that prove to be points of imperial weakness. Tenochtitlan, founded on a lake in the Valley of Mexico, was a marvel of hydraulic engineering. Its causeways connected the island city to the mainland, and its renowned chinampas, highly fertile artificial plots of land, allowed the city to feed a massive population in an impossible environment. The ability to manage water, salinity, and traffic in this delicate ecosystem required profound technological and mathematical expertise, demonstrating the intellectual rigor of the Mexica. Despite the clear evidence of advanced infrastructure, numerous mysteries remain concerning the day-to-day internal workings of the Aztec Empire. Crucial information regarding tax administration, the true nature of the state structure, and the complex logistical management required to sustain such a large urban center continues to challenge academic interpretations. The system required relentless resource flow. New subjects were required to pay tributes to Tenochtitlan every 80 days. This constant mandatory extraction implies a highly sophisticated, standardized system of administration and record-keeping that is either fragmentary or lost to modern research. The fact that an empire capable of building floating cities and calculating the path of the stars, Tonalpohualli, left massive interpretive gaps regarding its core resource flow suggests an essential administrative choice. This structural vulnerability points toward a crucial dynamic of power. The empire was designed to prioritize external resource extraction and military enforcement, coercing tribute every 80 days, over developing a standardized internal and centralized bureaucracy of record-keeping. The lack of detailed, decipherable ledgers for the administration suggests a system that was deliberately opaque or decentralized in its internal management, focusing its energies outward. This reliance on forced extraction meant the structure was politically brittle. When the Spanish arrived, they encountered a massive, resource-hungry centralized power that was loathed by its peripheral tributary subjects. By exploiting this widespread resentment and administrative opacity, Cortés was able to convince these heavily taxed populations to cut off the lifeblood of the empire, effectively starving the logistical black hole that was Tenochtitlan. The most fascinating puzzle of the Aztec Empire is the gap between its mythological founding and the hard, dry facts of its origin. This theory rigorously posits that the Mexica elite strategically suppressed the scientific reality of their migration to manufacture a divine right to conquer. The philosophical imperative of the Aztec world was to maintain balance on the slippery earth. The historical record is clear. The Mexica were migrants who arrived late to the Central Valley after a lengthy, arduous journey. The core challenge for the founding Tlatoani noble class was to reconcile the difficult reality of their displacement with the necessary political narrative required to seize power from established groups in the valley. The environmental collapse, the truth. Archaeological and climate data overwhelmingly support the view that the ancestral lands in northern Mexico and the southwestern United States were subjected to severe, prolonged drought conditions in the 13th century. Aztlan, whether a single city or a region, failed environmentally, forcing the Mexica, like other tribes, to search for a more sustainable, water-rich environment. They were not pilgrims following a divine GPS. They were climate refugees, driven by necessity. The political fabrication, the lie, the conspiracy is the conscious decision by the developing elite to bury this fact. Admitting that the great nation of the Mexica had been defeated by drought would have made them an immediate political target in the valley, proving them incapable of maintaining balance on the slippery earth. Instead, the leadership co-opted the existing belief in divine forces. They packaged the century-long exodus not as a survival tactic, but as a direct, holy imperative from Huitzilopochtli. The destination was not chosen out of logistical need, but out of divine instruction, the eagle on the cactus. The payoff. This intentional political fabrication created the cornerstone of the Aztec Empire's power structure. Firstly, it provided the ultimate religious justification for constant conquest, militarism, and expansion. All subsequent wars were merely acts of fulfilling a destiny mandated by their god. Secondly, it guaranteed the perpetual political authority of the Tlatoani and the priests. They became the sole, indispensable links to this divine mandate, granting them privileged status, tax exemption, and the unquestioned right to demand endless tribute and military service from the populace. The greatest achievement of the Aztec elite, therefore, may have been convincing everyone that their flight from disaster was in fact an unstoppable holy war. So, was the Aztec Empire built on a drought-induced lie? Drop your wildest non-dangerous theory about Aztlan's real estate crisis in the comments. To fully appreciate the tragedy of the Aztec collapse, one must recognize the stunning intellectual depth and cultural refinement that flourished alongside the rituals of cosmic necessity. The Aztec elite were not simply militarists. They were highly cultivated intellectuals. Their civilization excelled in disciplines that encompassed mathematics, pictographic writing, sophisticated astronomical observation, botany, and herbal medicine. They inherited and refined the wisdom of their subjugated provinces, demonstrating a comprehensive knowledge base. Central to their intellectual life was the concept of wisdom, or epistemology, defined as well-rootedness, and cognitive burgeoning and flowering. This search for truth was encapsulated in the beautiful Nahuatl phrase, in Xochitl, in Cuicatl, meaning flower and song, which represented the highest forms of art, poetry, and philosophy. This sophisticated perspective provides necessary context. The same hands that oversaw the grim requirements of the calendar were also responsible for art so profound that renowned British sculptor Henry Moore spoke of its truth to material, its tremendous power without loss of sensitiveness. It reveals a complex society that was constantly trying to achieve balance between the brutal demands of maintaining Tenochtitlan and the intrinsic value of beauty and art. Studying the complexity and eventual collapse of the Aztecs teaches us a lesson in profound humility. Their civilization's demise came with the dawning of the 16th century. For all their philosophical depth and administrative rigor, their ability to create systems to track time, manage water, and enforce tribute, the equilibrium they sought to maintain proved fatally vulnerable. We see parallels in the great, unexplained mysteries of history, such as the mysterious collapse of the Mayan lowland cities between AD 700 and thousands, for reasons that still elude scholars. The fact that any highly complex, seemingly robust civilization can simply empty out highlights the limits of human knowledge and control. The Aztecs' elaborate efforts to maintain the balance of the universe were ultimately insufficient against external shock and internal resentment. Their demise was a sudden reckoning, underscoring that all human power, no matter how divinely mandated or logistically impressive, like those hundreds of imported starfish, is ultimately temporary in the face of universal, chaotic forces. The Aztec Empire, with its floating capital, its precise cosmic doomsday clocks, and its calculated use of starfish as military relics, embodies the astonishing audacity of human belief. Their history is a dramatic exploration of the universal human drive to impose order and meaning onto a chaotic world. They leverage science, art, and terrifying rituals in a collective, centuries-long effort to sustain their civilization and keep their universe from spiraling into divine war. The wonder inherent in their achievements, the monumental architecture, the refined philosophy of flower and song, the scientific conservation efforts in modern archaeology should fill any thoughtful observer with awe. It confronts us with the extraordinary power humans possess to build something magnificent, and the necessary humility required when we recognize that all such great human endeavors are subject to the same finite laws. Alex's personal message: when you look at everything the Aztecs built, the precision, the power, the pure, audacious scale of it, it should stop you in your tracks. It reminds us that there is incredible power at work, whether we are talking about the builders of Tenochtitlan or the God who set the stars in their place. And for me, that realization leads back to the enduring truth found in the Psalms, a reminder that the awesome might we see in history anchors us to an even greater constant. You are the God who works wonders. You have made known your might among the peoples. Psalm chapter 77, verse 14. Okay, thanks for watching. Peace out. Goodbye, guys.